Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 38 of the Office Hours podcast. Today, we have a new guest. He's my friend and former colleague, Ali. He's talking basically about his journey as a developer, how he ended up being in this career and what he's done since and what he's doing now. We kind of reminisce about some of the times that we had together in the past and talk about the industry and various things that are happening. I hope you enjoy what's about to follow, and I'll see you there. Hello, and welcome to the episode 38 of the Office Hours podcast. Today is a bit of a special occasion. I'd like to welcome my good friend Ali, his first appearance on a podcast. I met Ali a bunch of years back at a boot camp, if the memory serves me right. And yeah, Ali's been in this business for quite a while. And today I was just hoping to kind of get his story in terms of how, he got into programming, what things he had to go through to end up where he is right now. And that's sort of the topic of today's episode. So, hey, Ali, nice to see you, man. How you been?
Yep. Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I was just trying to remember, like we met at Lighthouse a bunch of years back. And if memory serves me right, you were like a student in one of the cohorts, right? And I was there as a TA. And, we kind of hit it off. And then soon after you graduated from there, you became a TA yourself. So we kept like kind of hanging out. And a bunch of other things happened. So I don't know, maybe you can tell me your version of that story.
Yeah, that specific part, I think it was like the beginning of 2014. So I decided to do a boot camp, and I think it was 10 weeks at that time. And I don't remember at one point you came in as a TA, but I do remember like our first interaction. I think they were teaching us how to do some Ajax thing with some API, probably like Stripe or something like that. And I was kind of hitting my head against the wall, trying to figure out how to get this thing working, especially because all I knew at that point was kind of like synchronous programming, and the async stuff was kind of like, what's going on here? Why is the response not coming back the way I expected to? And I think I just like put my hand up, and I was lucky enough where you sat with me for maybe like, seems like an hour or something, just hacking away, trying to show me how this thing was working. So I think that was our first interaction. So it's been like over a decade now that we've been friends. But I think after the whole bootcamp experience, I was trying to do some deep dives into different things, because the bootcamp only gets you so far. You get the basic stuff, the very, very basic stuff. And, you try to get some work as not even a junior, basically, just doing anything, just getting some mentorship. And I think the first job I had was this local real estate company. And it was kind of difficult because they wanted me to build some stuff, and I just knew very basic stuff. So I decided to reach out to you afterwards. We weren't really friends at that point, but we were, we knew each other from the boot camp. We talked a whole bunch during the boot camp. And then I wanted to see if you could mentor me for a while, and then you did. So we were like focused on learning Node and Express and things like that at that point. So that was kind of like the beginning of when we became friends, and
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, those early bootcamp days were kind of interesting because you were in cohort number 2. So they basically just started operations effectively like a couple of weeks prior. And I met one of the founders, or I believe it was some kind of meetup, and we kind of got to talking, and he said, oh, if you like this type of stuff, you should show up and like just talk to people about this thing. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. And yeah, and in the very beginning, they kind of had their curriculum ready. A lot of it was Ruby on Rails, and a bunch of it was in JavaScript. And the system was that like if you're stuck, you raise your hand and somebody shows up and kind of talks to you about it. Because eventually later on, I've been with them for a bunch of years after. They kind of had this automated system with a portal where students can like press a button on their web page, and we as TAs, we got like notifications on our phones, and then people would like rush to answer your question, and then they would say, oh, try to limit the time to like 10 minutes. But originally it was just like, yeah, I'll spend an hour talking about like how did we come from Ajax calls all the way to, x86 CPU architecture? I don't know. It was a ride, but the point is it kind of went all over the place. So I don't know. I
It was
remember, yeah.
it was definitely cool for sure. Yeah, before I got, I think like after a couple of years, they were like, this is too hectic. Everybody's putting their hand up. All these TAs are running around like chickens. So they had to put in a process. It couldn't go forward the way it was. But it was a really cool culture at the beginning. And yeah, I was in the second cohort, and it was just basically there was a bunch of TAs just like, shooting the shit, and you'd get stuck. You put your hand up, and somebody would kind of stumble over, sit with you. Some people didn't, want to sit with you too long, but some people like yourself, if you've kind of got a good rapport, would sit with you for like an hour or two or something like that. And then you just, yeah, you'd go down these like crazy rabbit holes, which was kind of nice. A lot of it was like kind of just, like past my, over my head, but um, it was good to have somebody, like TAs that were like passionate about the technology at that point, and just kind of try to explain to you the best that they could. Cause like there's not a whole lot, at that point, but you're just kind of like, you take little bits of it and you just kind of run with it and try to learn.
Yeah, yeah. I think even for myself at that time, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I think I kind of had these phases where I was just kind of doing very extreme things. It's just like, yeah, let's explain like these super advanced topics. And then I see like people have like their eyes just glaze over. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going too far. And I kind of had to learn that process for myself too. And in my understanding, it was like I cannot teach you everything, but at least I can show you what is out there just in general. And if some of it sticks later on, you might remember, be like, oh, there is actually this thing that I can kind of research a little bit more. So
Yeah.
that was my style. I don't know. It seemed to work for a lot of people. Not to brag, but I had a perfect 5.0 rating out there. So, that was kind of
Definitely.
nice.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. If you're looking for somebody like passionate, you're kind of the go-to. You and a couple other people.
Yeah, for sure. So before you joined the boot camp, like what were you doing? It wasn't programming, I imagine. Was this like a big departure for you at the time?
Yeah, it was. So in university, I was well, when I was about to graduate high school, I was like, what do I want to do? So it was either like two paths. I wanted to go into like health stuff, so like go into medicine or pharmacy, or maybe like even like some kind of research thing. But I was always like passionate about computers and like video games, and I was like running my own server at some point with like a stupid connection with like a 1 megabyte kind of cable connection back in the day. I was trying to hack things together. So then I decided to just go to university and do like the health stuff. And then so I was taking biology, chemistry, things like that. And it was okay. But at some point I decided I don't know if I can make like a career out of this. I don't really want to be a doctor in the pharmacy thing. I was like, it might be a little boring. It's not really me. Still interested in the stuff. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll take some like computer courses. So I took some like computer science at UBC. They were teaching Java. I found it really cool, but the way they were teaching it was it was a little strange and boring. We were like writing programs at points in like on paper. There was labs and things like that, which was cool, but it was a little archaic. Um, and I wasn't like the way I am. I'm pretty visual. I got to see like write some code, see a result. Build a form or something. I don't know, make a request to an API. And we weren't really doing that at that point, so I kind of just left it and continued the whole science thing. And I ended up like for whatever reason going into like logistics, like managing logistics for years after that. But at the same time, I was kind of still passionate about computer stuff. So I was like learning networking on my own, reading books. I picked up like a Java book. I tried to like make my way through it. It was really difficult. But I was building sites for friends and different things, like even some e-commerce stuff, a basic like HTML, CSS. I don't know if you can call that programming, but it was still something. Learning basic JavaScript, and then around like 2011 or something like that, I think it was. I bought a Ruby book and tried to like learn Ruby. And I was like, this is a cool language. This is very different than the Java stuff I was learning. It's actually like approachable. I can kind of like build little scripts with it. I didn't know how to build like servers and have like apps running and stuff like that, but I could write little scripts for myself, like automate little things here and there. Um, but I was like, well, how can I maybe make this a career? And it was like kind of sitting in the back of my head for a couple of years, until like around 2013. I was like reading one of these like tech magazines, like one of these local ones, and they were like, these guys who are coming from Toronto, they're gonna set up like a boot camp here. And I was like, what the hell's a boot camp? So I kind of watched some videos. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Uh, you know, what do I got to lose? I'll just do this like 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is.
I think it
And
was
then
even 8 weeks at that point because it was just straight
yeah,
up 2 months. Yeah.
yeah, it was very short. It was crazy. But I was like, okay, I'll just like take a break from my work, and give this a shot and see if I can learn just enough and meet enough people where I can just get my foot in the door. Like I have some like very basic understanding of stuff. Maybe these guys can get me to the next level, uh, just enough so I can be useful for some company. And even if they want to pay me minimum wage, that's fine. Like I just mostly what I wanted was to get my foot in the door and get mentorship, so I can just see if I can make a career out of it. And that's kind of what happened. So I talked to them. I'm like, you guys are starting up shop. When you start up in Vancouver, please let me know and I'll join. And they're like, okay, yeah, give us like down payment so we know you're serious, and then we'll take it from there. And then they just call me. They're like, okay, come do a little entrance exam thing. If you pass, then you can start in January. So 2014, I started, and yeah, like 8 weeks, and then it was just kind of you know smooth sailing, sort of after that.
Those 8 weeks, like I've been there only on a TA side, but I've interacted with a bunch of people. Because essentially, like after your cohort was finished, I just stayed on, and I've stayed on for like almost 4 years. And I just remember how brutal it was those 8 weeks. I think eventually they turned it into 10 weeks. They kind of like a little gap in the middle. But the 8 weeks, it was literally like 12-hour days. People would show up early in the morning. And I myself stayed, like I did the evening shift after my
Yeah,
normal full-time job. And I remember
yeah.
come some days staying till like 10, 11 p.m. People would still be doing their labs.
Mm.
And yeah, it was like a total grind. You basically like put your entire life on hold for those 8 weeks and do nothing else. And if you get out out to the treasure on the other side, you had good chances of succeeding in it in some way, shape, or form.
It was brutal, man. Yeah, I think you're right. It went to 10 weeks, and then I think now it's like 12 weeks. I'm not sure what it is now, but yeah, they expanded it, and it was like a lot of the curriculum was kind of the co-founder and the head instructor at the time was kind of like, this is what we're learning this week, and then you just go at it. It was I was what I ended up doing was like at the time I was living in kind of Greater Vancouver, but like outside of Vancouver, like an hour away. So I was like, this schedule's not gonna work. Like I'm just gonna die. So I actually got a roommate temporarily for like 6 months, and I moved pretty much like a few blocks from the school, so that I can get up first thing in the morning, like get up at like 6, 7, eat something, and just like walk over, and then I'd be there, like you said, many nights I was there till like midnight, sometimes like even later than that. Like there was some TAs you'd stay pretty late, and then there was a couple other TAs that would just like stay around even later than that. So some nights, yeah, it was like till midnight, 1 a.m., and then I just like quickly eat something, whatever I could find, go home, study as much as I could, sleep a few hours, and then come back the next day. And the weekends, I would just try my best to recover on like Saturday or Sunday, but I was kind of dead. And then when the 8 weeks ended, I was just like completely drained. I was like done. It just like it fell apart. But
Yeah.
I think it was like the only way to do it. It was the only way.
Yeah, yeah. I think the 4 week period, there was like this definite cutoff because some people would drop off like after first week, they just be gone. They like can't handle it. And then a lot of people kind of fell off after the fourth week. But for some people, you can kind of see at the fourth week, it would just click. They would be like, before it's total deer in the headlights kind of look. It's just like, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. But after the fourth
Mm.
week, you could see that it was like, okay, I'm getting some of it. This is I can work with that. So yeah, but it's kind of intense. Like after you've graduated, did you just
Mm.
like take a couple of months off not doing anything just to recover, or did you try to like I never really knew how the job placement side of it worked. I just
Mm.
knew that they had one. And it's not like I'm trying to shield the bootcamp. I just want to learn about the experience from you. What happened after you were done?
So at that time, the last week, so like the eighth week, was like a final project. So there was three of us on a team. So we built this very basic app, and
Do
then
you,
they had like a demo day
do you remember what you
where,
built?
yeah, it was it was like a ride sharing app, which is insane. But yeah, we tried to build as much stuff as we could, but it was like, it was barely working. Uh, but just enough for a demo.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was proud that the damn thing was running in the first place. And then we demoed it in front of a bunch of people. They asked questions and things like that, and some people were getting like offers to come on as like juniors. Um, but I didn't have anything at that point, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like start applying for work or whatever. And then like when the boot camp ended, like a week after, um, this local company startup that had just raised a little bit of money, just one of my friends had gone there, and then I guess he had told them like, Ali's looking for something too. So if you need another person, it'd be cool to bring him on. So he called me and he's like, "Are you interested in coming on at least for like a few months?" I think at that time they were like, if you take on somebody, they would have to sign something with the boot camp. It was like you have to keep them at least like 2 months or 3 months, and then you have to pay them a certain amount, like a very basic amount, because they were taking on a lot of risk too, right? They were just spending a hell of a lot of time mentoring you because you don't know a hell of a lot. So I ended up almost like I had like maybe 1 week off after, and then I went to work. And I think I spent like 3 months there. Uh, but I was getting frustrated because um, they were busy. They had a lot of pressure on themselves to build these things out from the investors, and I really wanted mentorship, and I was getting mentorship from you. Like after work, like a couple times a week, probably, I can't remember. You'd meet me uh, at the school, and we'd do like a couple hours together, just a bunch of questions. I'd make a list every week, and then you'd just kind of like show me how things worked. Um, but I was getting kind of frustrated because I felt like I needed more mentorship. There was too many holes in my understanding. There was a lot of people that just continued on with the companies for like a couple of years even, that I know personally, but I didn't. I need to step back and like kind of list everything that I'm not comfortable with, because I felt like a total imposter. The imposter syndrome was like kind of overwhelming. So I was like, okay, well, I'll take a step back, but I need to make some money, right? So I started doing like contract work, very basic stuff, whatever I could get my hands on. I was like, if you need help with basic stuff, like build a form here and there, or like your WordPress isn't working or whatever it is, I'll just do it. And I did. I did a whole bunch of WordPress stuff. I built a bunch of static websites, got better at like very basic things like CSS and things like that. jQuery at the time was still pretty heavily used. So I started learning more and more, and then we became friends, and then we started doing some stuff together too. And then just kind of progressed into more contract work, and then like I think end of like 2016, I decided to join another startup, and I've been with them since. And then I was doing like mentoring with the boot camp until around COVID time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, we had a couple of projects together, which was pretty interesting. Because I was working at Move at the time out of Richmond with Realtor.com, and the things were starting to get kind of weird at the company. And I remember one day, you and Nick, our third from our triumvirate, you kind of came and was like, hey, we have this project. Remember that, was it Memsport or something, where we were trying to build a
Yeah.
mobile app? And it was like this
Yeah.
fixed rate contract. And I think I was still working at Move while we were building this. And
Yeah.
it was kind of a crazy. We just had these tight deadlines. We had this guy who was running this project. He was a bit weird, not gonna lie. And I remember we just had all these problems with the fact that we're building this hybrid native app, and it wasn't working. It was just some weird ass bugs, and that was a total shit show. And then that project got wrapped up to varying degree of success, and we were sort of hungry for doing something else. And I
Yeah.
was like, we should build our own startup. And I don't know, for some reason I was so enthusiastic about it that I basically quit my job over it.
That's right. Yeah.
I went to my manager, was like, that's it, I'm done. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned the story on a podcast specifically, but I even have a picture somewhere. But I had this whiteboard in my cube, and on which I kind of had this thermometer drawn out. And whenever things would like bug me on a company level, like making dumb decisions or just doing something stupid that I disagree with, I just kind of like fill it up a little bit. And I said,
Oh
like,
wow, I didn't know that.
when the thermometer hits the top, I'll quit. You
That's
know, like
hilarious. I didn't know that.
it was, you know, it was like the Russell Jimmy's meter. So if somebody was rustling my jimmies, it would get filled up. And then
Yeah.
eventually I was like, flip the table. It's time to get out of here. I was kind of feeling
Yeah.
stuck. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I mentioned it on a previous episode that like my manager at the time, he like offered me a promotion from like a intermediate dev to senior dev or something like that.
Mm.
And I said no to it. I was like, there's gonna be meetings. I don't want to do too many meetings. I just want to write code.
Yeah.
So screw that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do it. Now I'm thinking back to it. I was like, Jesus Christ, that was such a dumb decision. But anyway, so I quit, and we started working on a couple of projects, and you know, none of them really worked out. And I think the last one in the end didn't really work out in a big part because of me. So, you know, now it'll be time for my public mea culpas. But I was so burnt out at that point in time for various reasons. I would literally, we rented a desk. We rented a desk out of a co-working, which was also pretty silly because it's like we just spent a bunch of money on a desk and like that. That was kind of useless.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, don't spend any money, kids, when you're starting startups. Just don't spend any money. Like spend as little as possible. It's not worth it. Unless it's
I think
somebody
we
else's
did.
money. Yeah, if it's your investor's money, then who cares? But if it's your own money, don't spend any money.
Yeah. I think I don't know how you felt about it at the time. I think yeah, you were burnt out and you didn't want to kind of work for a big corporation, but um, I think we just wanted to kind of do something, and we didn't really like do our due diligence to see, analyze the market, and we didn't at what we were trying to do. We didn't really understand that market at all. Well, I didn't,
Yeah,
and we were just let's make some friends, let's talk to people, and then let's build something they want. So it was kind of a weird approach to it. It's because like uh yeah, this like the way me and you were thinking, we're like from an engineering standpoint,
yeah,
and Nick was like more like a marketing type of mindset. But none of us had any experience with that industry, and it was difficult. It's like everybody was just telling us, "Don't get into this industry. Not a good idea. There's no money in it. Like, why? What are you doing?" But
we're
sometimes you have to do these
yeah,
things.
we're very self-hype driven at that point in time. We're like, I'll be
Yeah,
fine. It, you
yeah,
know, in all fairness, it could have been fine, but I started to reach this stage where I was just so burnt out psychologically that I said that, like, you know, we rented a desk, so I'd be driving there kind of every day because, you know, I didn't have my full-time job anymore. I was just living off my savings. I would
yeah,
drive in. I still TA'd at Lighthouse, which was like a big help financially because I was still making some money to like cover my expenses. But I would come in the morning, and I would sit in front of the laptop that I had for hours and just not do anything. And every second of it, I was sitting there like, oh my God, these guys are depending on me to code something, and I just can't bring myself to write a single keystroke. It was brutal. It was like this sort of like this self-reinforcing loop where the more you not do things, the guiltier you feel for not doing things, and that brings you down overall psychologically even more. So man, those were tough times. I think after I said, sorry guys, like I don't think I can do this, I basically haven't done anything for an entire year. Like I
mm,
still TA'd because that didn't really that was just me answering people's questions. It didn't actually require me actually doing things besides sharing what I know. So it
mhm.
made enough money for me to kind of pay my rent, but I literally didn't do anything for a whole year. I would go to a park, I would like listen to podcasts and just walk in the park and like sleep and, you know, watch something on TV and maybe read, and I didn't do anything. And only like maybe after like 10 months I kind of started having a sense that like, I could maybe be doing something again. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy time.
Yeah, I didn't know that you did that because I think after you left, I don't know, I was busy with stuff. You were doing your own thing, and then we didn't really interact much.
Yeah.
Just like message back and forth once in a while.
Yeah, just sharing some memes.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, I remember you being, I didn't know it was like called burnout at the time, you know? You'd just come in and you weren't productive and you're just kind of like going through something. I knew you were going through something,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what. And then I was kind of burnt out myself, but I like, you know, I just keep going. That's like my nature until I just like basically die.
Fall.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was a strange time.
Yeah.
For sure.
After that experience, I kind of formulated it for myself. Because you analyze it after you realize what was going on, because you can't really see it while you're in it. You can only see it like from the outside or once it's over. And I kind of formulated this thing that, like, if you think that you are being burnt out, you probably have already been burnt out for at least 3 months.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the signs, it's really hard to kind of even understand that. It's like, oh, I'm depressed, I'm in a shitty mood, I'm not as productive, I'm not writing code as much. And then it all kind of comes crashing and burning. So I should probably do a whole episode on burnout and the signs and how to recognize it and what to do about it. But maybe
I think everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. But like, yeah. I kind of like, for me personally, it's like I kind of know I'm starting to go down that route when it's like I'm kind of dreading writing some code or doing anything. It's like the joy gets kind of taken out of it. So now I kind of know when that starts to happen, I have to find something different to do, or maybe like it's time to go on a vacation, and then usually I come back and the joy of like building stuff is back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. Definitely, everyone kind of has their own thing, so it's pretty crazy, but it's pretty widespread, or at least it used to be pretty widespread. Maybe now it's on a resurgence, because we had this kind of very sweet and fat period of time where, all the influencers were recording their days in layoff, blah, 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 working for some megacorp, sipping wine at your rooftop yoga session. I don't think you can really get burned out from that. But now that the market is contracting quite sharply, I'm pretty sure a lot of more people are like putting in a lot more effort and hours into their jobs. So the risk of burnout is back, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's true. But also like there's a lot more like there's a lot more understanding, I guess, of like the whole burnout thing. Like I said, like I didn't know. I was just like, I'm just tired all the time. I don't know what's going on. Something's off. Yeah, but now people like are more open to talking about it and things like that.
Yeah. Cool. So you said that after we kind of went our separate ways, you joined a company that you're with currently. So like you joined, I would imagine, still at like a junior level. So how was your progression through the company? Like where you are right now, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I was still a junior. So I was like I was still going very hard, like reading tons of books, watching lots of people code videos, just trying to soak up as much as I could, get as much mentorship as I could. But then I was like, yeah, I want to try building another company with some people I know. So I was like the CTO of that company, but it's like, I don't really like that title, because like, when you're like the only person coding, really, it's like, what does that really mean? But yeah, it was kind of a risk, because some people that had experience at the time that I was working with were kind of depending on me, so I couldn't mess up too badly. So there was that pressure, and as a junior, it's a lot of pressure. So I just basically what I did was I tried to kind of like build the application like an MVP sort of thing, the best I could, in a way where I still had outs if I like messed some kind of part of the infrastructure up, because I was still learning at the time. So I did the best I could, and then over the years I got better and better and better, and kind of like I found ways to get better with different technologies, and it's difficult when you're kind of on your own. So what worked for me was all the stuff that I was using. I just decided that I'm gonna just like do deep dives on them, and like if I'm using like a bunch of open source libraries, I would just like read all the code. I would try to figure out, okay, if I'm calling these methods and things like that, like what does the code look like? So I would spend tons of time, like after hours on the weekends, trying to figure out, if I make this call, where does it go, and so on. And so I learned different people's styles. I learned like, okay, these open source libraries have been around a long time. A lot of different people are committing to them. There's a lot of comments on them. I'd read them like, why are you making these decisions? Because like when you're working for a big company and you have mentorship, it's easy. You do like code reviews and things, hopefully, and you get better. You're like, okay, well, this guy told me this is not what I should be doing for these various reasons, but I didn't really have that. So I had the pressure of like building stuff that customers are actually using. We didn't have too many customers, but there were people that were paying to use this thing. But I had to get better, so that was kind of my approach to it. And I would build stuff. I would learn from what I built. Sometimes you'd kind of like hit performance issues, because I wasn't that good at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I got to get maybe better at something like, let's say, like my SQL query is like the logs or the metrics are showing like these queries are taking forever to, and then I learned, okay, I picked up a book about like indexing, for example. So I understood. At the time, I knew basic understanding of indexing, but I had to do like a bunch of deep dives on that, and that's like one example. So yeah, I've been doing that since. So it's like I'm almost at 8 years now, and along the way, I was still kind of mentoring, like I said, until like around COVID, and then our company picked up some juniors, couple juniors along the way, and then now we have a pretty seasoned senior working with me as well. So yeah, it's been a rough journey. It's not the traditional kind of journey developers take, but it's kind of like what worked for me. But it's a lot of like pain and hitting your head against the wall. Yeah, it's not for everybody, but that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. No, fair enough, fair enough. Do you think that, if you were at the crossroads, would you still make that choice to go into this business, seeing how it is currently? Because, compared to even 10 years ago, it's quite different, especially for a person that's just starting. I think back then, the complexity wasn't as insane as it is now. You needed to know less as a junior to be productive. Now it kind of feels like, oh, you have to know all of these things just before you can even bundle some simple website. Maybe that's not true, but at least it's kind of portrayed like that. It's like, oh, if you're not using Kubernetes on GCP, building Docker with all of these microservices, blah, 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 you're not even doing it right. So if you're a junior entering this thing, and that's the kind of messaging that you get directed at you, you're like, oh my God, what do I even do? I was kind of lamenting the times where you just, you SSH on a server and you edit the PHP file in production, and, that's how your code got deployed or hot fixes got made, It was really, really simple. The barrier to entry was, I guess it's kind of funny because the barrier to entry was high in a sense that there's like less information out there. Now you have a YouTube tutorial for that thing and the other, right? But now the complexity sort of shifted, so you can have all the information. It's just the surface that you need to cover to learn all of these things is kind of insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in like tune with it too much these days. I just don't have the time to like see what like juniors are going through. I'm sure I mean, I read some stuff on Hacker News, obviously, but yeah, I think there's a ton of complexities, tons of technologies out there, and it was a lot more simple when I started, and it's probably way more simple, like you said, when you started, which was like way before me.
Yeah, probably another 10 years, give or take.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like why it's so important. I think if you're just starting out to like be in good hands, if you end up with somebody that's like, I don't know how to phrase it. It's like you get like these seniors with like crazy egos.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they're like, this is the only way, we have to use X and Y technology. It's the only way. Everybody else is dumb because they're doing this other thing. Yeah, that would be kind of a rough way to go. I think it's really important to pick your mentors wisely. So no matter when you start, if it was 20 years ago or when I started or even now, I think you have to be careful, like how you like your approach to actually like starting work. If you end up in the wrong hands, you can kind of think you're dumb or something, or maybe this thing's not for you. It's not what you thought.
It can
just drop off.
Yeah, it can get really demotivating for sure. So I guess the question would be, like what would be the signs to look for? Like what would be the things to, how would you identify a good mentor versus a bad mentor? Because if you don't know that much, it's kind of hard to tell, right? It's like, is this guy full of shit, or is he saying sensible things, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's tough. Like if, especially like if you don't, yeah, like you said, if you don't know what you're looking for. Uh, but I think like you get a gut feeling of like, is this guy like, is this guy like being honest, or is he just like, if it's like his ego talking or something, Like I look for signs when somebody's trying to teach me something. They go like, this is kind of like what I do. Like these are these are the merits of like this tech that I'm using. But like you could do it this other way too. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And these are the reasons why I use it. They don't make like outrageous statements like, you have to use like Rust for building everything, or
Take it on
you have to
faith.
do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to use like Docker or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever the shiny new thing is. Like just because. But if somebody can explain to me exactly, like give me a list of why they made these decisions, then I'm like, okay, well, this guy's like thought about it a lot, and this is a person that's like, it's kind of like a deep thinker, is like humble enough, and then this would be probably like a good mentor to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
how I see it. It's like a gut feeling, sort of.
Yeah. It's hard for me to give advice on this because I realized with time that I tend to project too much about the things that I'm doing myself and assume that everybody else is kind of like that. And, lately I've realized it's like, yeah, that's not necessarily the case. There's like all sorts of people out there who are, maybe some of them are having like an ego trip or something. They get off on being like the smartest guy in a room or whatever. They don't have your best interest at heart. They just kind of want to lift themselves up for whatever reason. So it's kind of tough. But yeah, if you're in a shitty situation, don't stay in the shitty situation for too long. That's for sure.
True. I think one sign that like somebody's a good mentor actually would be if they kind of mention that like there's a right tool for every job. You know, that's like one kind of like giveaway. If if somebody's like willing to admit that, then I think they have a
Yeah.
potential to be a good mentor.
I think if the answer to most questions begins with words "it depends,"
Yeah.
yeah, then you kind of know, because it does depend really on so many different things.
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. So you're kind of you're in a mature startup right now. Are you still considering yourself, do you consider yourself more of a CTO now, or is it still not really?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but yeah, I like if like we're like in a meeting with some other people with like clients or something, okay, they're like, here's the CTO, um, and they don't think about it too much. But like personally, I'm like, what does that mean? Like usually it's like, for me, a CTO is like somebody in a big company that has a whole bunch of like people under them,
Hmm.
probably management even under them. They're
Right.
not the guy's not actively like spending 80% of his time coding himself. So
Yeah,
but
fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah, like these days it's kind of like the process is sort of like, we get feedback from like the market or our customers, and then like the management makes decisions, and they're like, this is what we need to do, and then they just kind of say like, here, it's up to you to build things out, figure it out. And then it's me and another senior, sometimes an additional junior, and then I just kind of go, okay, this is what we need to build, and then we have a talk about it, very collaborative. I don't really like to like tell people what to do. Um, just I try to have like a kind of like a equal relationship with everybody. I just kind of like, and I make it so that it's easy enough where like if I screw up something or if I'm not doing something right, somebody tells me like, you're not making good decisions here, and I do the same with them. And that's kind of relationship we have. So I don't know if you could call it like a traditional like a CTO thing.
Right,
Um,
right.
I'm managing, but like a very small team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess to me, CTO is responsible for like the overall technical direction,
yeah,
like picking the big picture direction and sticking with it, and making necessary changes if that doesn't work out, things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, even for me, uh, I kind of nominally had the title of senior engineer for a while, and only after some years it was like, maybe I am justified in calling myself that. We I think one of the first episodes that we did with Mo, we had this topic of title inflation, how everyone's a senior after 2 years or something. It's just like,
Yeah,
really?
true. It's a weird industry for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I remember having a talk with somebody that was like I was like, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm senior developer. How long have you been doing this? Like 2-3 years. I'm like, how's that possible? Like, I still don't consider, myself. I can't really say like senior. Like, what does that mean even? You know? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly, it certainly happens, but I guess we'll see how it plays out.
It's
Yeah.
a less of a thing now, I think, than it was like 10 years ago. But I don't know. I don't interact with a whole bunch of developers as much as I used to. Just because I'm busy, I'm not like mentoring. I'm not like going to meetups. Uh, maybe it's the same, but I feel like it's kind of like changed a little bit. Less people care. People just kind of like, they get a job as a programmer and they just kind of like progress through it. But like 10 years ago, it was like this whole culture, this tech culture, which kind of like I think like the apex of it was like the Silicon Valley show and that kind of stuff. It got a little comical,
Yeah.
and then people had to kind of be like, okay, dude, this is a little, it's getting a little nuts.
It is getting a little nuts. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that there's definitely been this shift because, I think when I started, you had to be super enthusiastic about it. You have to be like basically a turbo nerd and enjoy not spending any time with people and just like do the goblin thing in front of your computer all day, because it wasn't seen as glamorous in any way, and now after shows like Silicon Valley and after like some huge successes like Facebook, and everybody dreams themselves to be the next Mark Zuckerberg and like being a billionaire, right? So the glamour definitely attracts, and the period of really high salaries also attracts people who are in it for financial reasons, not as much as for like the tech reasons, which is, again, as I said before, is like nothing necessarily wrong with that, but the overall vibe has definitely shifted. I think it feels more utilitarian now. Like you come in, you write your code, you're not necessarily there to kind of geek out about all the latest and greatest, not necessarily. So yeah, it's interesting to observe it throughout all of the years and see how it changes.
Yeah, it's like good and bad. Yeah. Yeah. There's some fun aspects to like the geeking out part, like you said.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I still
yeah,
kind of, yeah. I remember some of the things that I did with some of the phases that, every developer goes through like a functional phase, and it's just like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
I remember your functional phase.
Yeah.
You tried to kickstart my functional phase, which I don't know if that worked.
Good thing too. I think you need to be exposed to it at some time, and kind of it's kind of getting, you get a disease, you have a fever for a couple of weeks, and then you get over it, and now you're immune. So now I very kind of judiciously use some of these things, but back then I was kind of going a little bit overboard. I was recently talking to another former colleague from a different company. He's like in his functional phase right now, and I'm like,
oh no way,
beware. It's fun, it's interesting, it's kind of mind-blowing, but look at the code you wrote 6 months ago and try to understand what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I don't know if there's another way. Sometimes you just I think the only way you can last at doing what we do is like genuine like passion and like love for it.
Yeah.
And a part of that is like, you see something new and shiny or some concept or something, and then you just kind of jump on it. You're like, oh, this is, it's going to change my life. It's going to change everything.
Solve all of my problems.
Yeah. And then you like look into it and you're like, now I need to use it. So you start using it and you're like, maybe it's not the right tool for everything,
Yeah. And
then, now you got this junk you're not proud of like a year later that you need to like refactor or something.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of healthy, explore things, to a healthy level.
Yeah, no, that's very true. You need to have variety, otherwise it gets boring.
Yeah,
it's like cuisine. Some people are pretty happy eating the same thing every day, but some variety every once in a while is kind of nice. But it
definitely,
yeah.
It's kind of like why. Sorry to interrupt you, but like it's like the journey I took, which is like doing like full stack and doing everything, like doing like even like DevOps and like all deployments and like back end, front end testing, like everything under the sun. Like I was like doing it myself, you know, just because I had to. We didn't have any money and all that stuff, so like it kept things interesting. Uh, but I can't imagine like just somebody just doing like, you know, I don't know, like configuring cookies or something for 4 years. I don't know. Like,
Yeah. But it's
yeah.
kind of interesting. I was just thinking about it because, at the dawn of my career, I was doing consulting at a big financial firm, and they straight up had like a dedicated database guy. He was like a database administrator. That was his role. That was the only thing he was doing. And then eventually people said, we can't afford having a dedicated guy for everything. So the multi-instrumentalist is now all the rage. You're supposed to know everything, right? You're supposed to be full stack. You have to do all of the things. But I think now there's just so many things that one person, it's just impossible for them to cover all of that. It's like, okay, if before you wrote code and now you have to do some databases, okay, fair enough. Oh, now you have to learn some CSS. Okay, maybe. Now you have to learn JavaScript. Now you have to learn React. Now you have to learn bundlers. Now you have to learn Docker. Now you have to learn Kubernetes. Now you have to learn DevOps. Now you have to learn SRE. I think it's probably going to start kind of, I mean, SRE is already turned into its own sort of dedicated thing. They like don't mingle with developers as much. So maybe that multi-instrumentalism era, maybe it's going to shift a little bit where some disciplines, like there's going to be some tighter bubbles around some particular core aspects of certain things, and they will be a little bit apart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That kind of what it looks like to me, at least.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the company too, right? Like I don't, you have experience with different size companies. I don't really. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense if you're a bigger company to like try to like have specialized people, but like if it's, yeah, I don't know what the industry looks like right now. You probably tell me better.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I don't even know. It's an interesting question. Like I work in a fairly big company right now. There's like a lot of different teams, a lot of different things that are happening, and I kind of find myself that, before I was very similar to what you were saying. It's just like learn everything you can possibly learn in the case of any given project and try to get really good at all of it. Now I find it's like, oh man, there's not enough time to learn everything. Like I'm still, when it comes to the whole SRE thing, I'm like Kubernetes. It's like, okay, I kind of get it, but if you throw some uh, Helm files at me, I'd probably would have to spend like a couple of weeks figuring out what the heck is going on, and I just don't feel like it as much, even though it feels
mm,
like I should know these things.
yeah,
So, I think my knowledge saturation is slowly kind of entering this phase where it's like harder or more lazy to learn new things as quickly as they come out. Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'll stick with what I know. Thank you very much. I don't know if it's the right thing or it's just like the nature of getting to this level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I tried to like pick the tools that I know and then try to kind of stay up to date. And if something comes up like my kind of like rule of thumb is like a lot of things get introduced like in the forums like Hacker News or elsewhere
yeah,
as something new shiny.
just
I
wait
kind
six
of like,
months.
well, sort of. I look at it. I'm like, okay, well, let's look into this. Like, well, how is this different from what I'm using? And then I just kind of like, put it in the back of my head for a while. And if it just keeps coming up over and over again after like maybe like a year or two, then I'll like do a little deeper dive into it. I'm like, can this like solve some problem that we have? Like, can this make life easier for us? And if so, does this look like it's something that has like some legs? Like, is it going to stick around? You know, or is it
Yeah,
going to be like something like a backbone or something that like nobody knows what it is these days anymore?
yeah,
You know, and that's kind of then I make a decision. But I think it's important to be like be open to different things. Be able to like have people convince you that like some tool you're using there's like a maybe there's a better approach to it.
yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah.
As soon as you turn into one of those cranky guys, it's like, oh no, the newfangled thing, kids these days. It's like you're done. You're done. Just retire.
Yeah, yeah. As much as I would love to like use like a Kubernetes and I like use Docker in development. I've been trying to like go production with like containers for the longest time. But it's just like, it's not I can't justify it at
Mhm.
the moment. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like the
Yeah.
app is not big enough. There's not enough users. The scripts that we use and it's like simple enough. It works. If we have more complexity, maybe it'll solve some problems. As much as I'd like to get my hands dirty with that and like learn new things, like that's kind of my decision making. It's like I can't like justify, spending a whole bunch of money trying to like figure that out.
Yeah,
So I haven't
yeah,
done it. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like, but like, but
yeah,
like
go
I
ahead.
was sorry, but like for example, like, we started off using like simple JavaScript and jQuery. And then like after a while, it was like, this is getting too messy. We need to like have an actual framework. And then we started using React, and then we started refactoring everything slowly into React. And then the whole like React, what was it, like 18 thing happened with like hooks and things. And I was like, well, our React code is like pretty messy. It's getting harder to refactor things. So that's like I saw that as a good decision. Let's just use that paradigm. So we do change. Like personally, I think it's important, but like it really depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Uh, it's funny when you have a mature project, you look into the refactoring possibility and you realize how monumental of a task it would be. And sometimes it's just like, screw that. Like nobody has time for this. And sometimes you just put against the wall and it's like, well, we have to do it. There's no other way. This is just too messy. It's impossible to reason about. Nobody can get anything done. Everything breaks everything else. So yeah.
Yeah, once you hit that point where you realize like every new thing that you want to introduce is like becoming harder and harder and harder, and like nobody wants to touch the damn stuff because nobody wants to be that guy that like breaks the code, you know? And because like you've been going at it so hard, like your test suite is not ideal, you know? So
Yeah.
everybody gets to that point where like productivity starts to grind to a halt. So then you're like then then the other difficult thing is trying to explain to like the non-technical management,
Why
like
that is.
why you need to like refactor, like why. Well, it's getting harder and harder, but they don't understand.
Yeah.
So at some point you have to put your foot down. It's like this is the reason why we're not like going as fast as we used to. We need to step back for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't been able to
Yeah.
ship a full feature in like 6 months because anytime we try to add anything, the whole thing just starts falling apart. Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
as far
for
as far
sure.
as learning new things, I was just gonna say that, I started this home lab thing where I just have like a powerful but tiny machine at home where I can like deploy a bunch of VMs to or containers or whatever. So I'll have some
Mhm.
opportunity to maybe I can deploy my own Kubernetes cluster locally and tinker with it and see what the heck the whole thing is about and learn about
Yeah.
it that way, provided, spare time. The weather is kind
Yeah.
of turning nice and, we need to do the renos in a house. I need to finish up my garage and I'd like to code something on the side for shits and giggles, so it may come to that. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see like if you can convince your management, if you can take on like new new projects instead of like uh knocking some walls down or
Yeah.
whatever she wants you to do.
Yeah.
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 Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like what's next for you? You have any grand plans in your professional career?
Hmm. No, it's just I think I just want to like do what I'm kind of doing for the for at least the next few years. I think just kind of see this project through to a point where I can consider it like a success. Like if the company's growing, we're doing pretty okay, uh, and still learning. We like I said, we brought on somebody new. I'd like to grow the team a little bit more, maybe do a little bit more mentoring. And make the app better, make it like ideal in my eyes, like uh, more secure, more private, whatever the metric is. Um, and then I think I'll just like I'll know when it's time to just kind of step away, and then maybe it's at a healthy spot and I can hand it off to the next guy, and I'm confident that they can kind of take over. But I'm still enjoying software quite a lot, so I just want to continue until at least like the AI takes it over or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those days. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it's with dread or optimism. I still can't figure out which, but it's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great spot to wrap this up. So thank you very much, Ali, for being here. It's been a great conversation, and I think we covered some topics that might be interesting to bring back in the next installment. If you'd like to do it, we can have you back. And
Yeah.
for everybody else that's watching, I hope you enjoyed it all, and you join us in for the next one. Thank you, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was fun.
All right. Talk to you later.